our next guest, I'm very excited about. Her name is DeAnnah Stinson Reese. She is a very fascinating woman and has some very interesting ideas, and she's got a wonderful specialty of diversity and inclusion. Her content is amazing. Please connect with her on LinkedIn, and let's bring her on, Miss DeAnnah Stinson Reese.
Hey,
let's see. Oh, you're off to the side. There she goes. Hey.
There she is.
What's up? How y'all doing?
Doing good. And first of all, I would like to say that I love your glasses. Can we just start off by asking where you got your glasses? Those are chic.
Yeah, they are.
It's a private eyeglass or optometrist out here that I go to. It's in like Pasadena, Texas, and they have like really unique frames. And so that's what I do. That's where I go.
Yeah, I need help in that arena.
No, I love it. So I was very excited to have you on. And by the way, let's get this out of the way. Last time you were not able to join us because a hurricane chased you away. How is your home?
We're good. So the last hurricane we had, we were like stranded. Granted, our house didn't flood with the Hurricane Harvey, but we were stranded. And I'm not from the South. I am from Chicago. So when this hurricane came around and they were like sending out these voluntary evacuation orders based on the trajectory of the hurricane, my parents were in town, and I was like, you know what, we're out of here. Like they sent it out like that morning of the show, and I was like, yeah, we're out of here. And it dawned on me like as we were packing, like, crap, I got the show today. So I am so sorry, y'all, that I had late. So sorry.
It's okay. It's not your fault. And God love you. You let me know in the middle of all of that with plenty of time to plan around. So thank you for that. But I just wanted to make sure you're okay. So you and I had a great conversation recently about some of the issues with diversity and inclusion and hiring. And this is something Foster and I have talked about. It's something that gets on my last nerve. And I just addressed this on Foster's show, the Who You Know show.
Yeah, we did.
We talked about this because, you see ageism, obviously racial discrimination against women. Let's, first I want to hear from you. What do you think are the biggest types of prejudice that we're seeing and discrimination that we're seeing in the job market right now?
Ageism and race, for sure. Yes. See it. I've seen it probably, I would say easily for like the past decade. And for sure in the last, I'll say 5 or so years, because I do work with professionals and companies on both ends of the sides of my business. And so I get a lot of professionals that they get discriminated against because of their age. Yeah. And then, of course, there's the demographic factors around race that hinders a lot of minorities from moving into senior level leadership roles.
Yes, and I want to talk about that too. I love that you said it that way, because I did a lot of research into this subject recently, and people always talk about the pay discrepancy, right? But what I discovered is that the bigger issue, because the numbers that you hear are the summary, right? It's not this position to this position. It's a more general summary. But what I discovered that was very disturbing to me is how much fewer minorities, and especially the African American men and women, are discriminated against. There's just so much lower of a percentage of them in these management type roles and in these executive type roles. What do you think is causing that? Because I can't.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was processing.
No, that was it. That was kind of the end of my thought.
Okay. There's quite a few things that play into that. You do have systemic racism that is really at the core of a lot of systems and policies that are ingrained in a lot of companies that have been around for so many years. And some of it is unintentional, so it's more covert because it's learned behavior, it's learned perceptions. And then some of it is intentional because one of the things that I work with companies on when they are reaching out to see, how do we be more equitable, and more inclusive with the minorities within our organization. And it starts with the conversation. And part of that conversation is, as someone that benefits from certain privileges, what would make you want to put that privilege at risk, right? Because it's kind of like if I'm benefiting from, let's say, a law that's in place. We're going to use a very vague hypothetical scenario. Let's say there's a law in place that says all women that have white glasses get to, walk on the car lot and get a car for free, right? Like you get to walk on the car lot.
Oh, I want that law. I want that law.
You gotta get the frames, Catherine.
I will be getting those frames too. Don't think it's not going to happen. It is.
But let's say that's the law, right? Let's say this is the law, and this is a privilege that I have as someone that has white eyeglass frames. What would want to compel me to change this structure, or this system, or this process that's in place for other people to have access to these brand new cars like I have access to?
Right.
Why would I want to give up this privilege, right? So it's kind of a similar mindset when you think about why this is an issue in companies in terms of not seeing a lot of minorities, and that includes women of color, not just African-American women, just women, period, and then women of color in senior level leadership roles. It is really about what has been created as a norm. And when you challenge that norm, you have to find ways to really think about, why do you want this norm to change from the perspective of a person who benefits from the norm? Your norm harms other people and you benefit from it. So it's really a challenging space. And unfortunately, I see a lot of tokenism when I go into companies. So they'll hire a Black woman or a Black male or an indigenous male or female or Asian or any nationality or race that is not white to fall into your diversity and inclusion chief diversity and inclusion officer or people in culture officer or VP of diversity and inclusion in these, roles that deal with people and race and culture. But you won't really see them as your CTO or your CIO or your VP of finance or, any of these other, or CEO for that matter, or COO. You won't see them in those roles. You'll see companies that will say, oh, let's bring in Foster for our chief diversity officer role. Now we're inclusive. Now we're more diverse. We're all about, being inclusive in the workplace. So
right. And that's not it. And Foster and I have talked about this, is that to hire with true diversity and to create true diversity in your company, you need to be hiring completely excluding the wrapping, as Foster and I call it. So age, gender, skin color, sexual identity, whatever it is. Nobody cares. Okay. How can you do the job? What are your qualifications? And I want to share with my audience a few stories that were one that I witnessed and I was a part of, and then one that I was told recently that were very deeply disturbing, because a lot of people have this idea that this isn't real, that this isn't a real problem. And I think that's because a lot of people don't see it, right? We don't know if we don't see. And so one of these, and I shared this already with you before, DeAnnah, is that I worked at a company a few years ago, and I ended up quitting, and by the way, reporting them for this. I had it happen multiple times that upper level management would email me and say, we don't want any more Black people for this role. We don't want any more Mexicans at this location. We don't want any more women over here.
In there,
Yeah, Foster. We've talked about this. And this happened in a large national company with tens upon thousands of employees. This was happening. And I would get these messages from people high up in the organization. It was disgusting. Okay. This happens all the time. Another one that was really sad to me, I just spoke with another diversity and inclusion specialist recently, a Hispanic male. And he told me that he would apply for a job. I think we brought this up on the Who You Know show, Foster. He would apply for a job with his full name and not get a call. He would resend the resume and take off his last name. And all of a sudden, he got a call for the exact same role with the exact same resume, the exact same information. So folks, this is a real issue. This is a problem. I have some ideas about getting rid of it, but DeAnnah, I would love to hear your take on some suggestions for using true diversity and how to hire with true diversity in a company, as opposed to the token hires, as you so eloquently put it.
Yes, because that is a real thing. And it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I literally did the same thing. I would apply for jobs with my full name, and then I'll take off my first name, DeAnnah, and just put D. Stinson, and got way more responses.
Oh,
I couldn't be identified. You don't know if I'm white, black. You don't know. Stinson could be white. It can be black. And so I saw way more traction. So that is definitely a real thing. And part of one of my suggestions, which ties in so eloquently, is, removing a lot of this unnecessary demographic data on the front end of screening. And I've worked on the back end of hiring. I know how important the demographic data is for EEOC data and whatnot. However, that's not necessary at the beginning phase of screening a candidate. If they take off their name, and if they don't have to identify as male or female, and one application that I saw a couple of days ago on LinkedIn, this poor girl, she reached out to me after I commented on her post. They asked her if she was transgender on the application. It asked, "Are you transgender?" And it was a drop down.
Why?
Companies are asking intrusive questions that are unnecessary. And while someone may try to
hold on real quick, I'm so sorry. I need a clarification on this. This is now stuck in my brain. Was this on an actual written an electronic application process or written application?
Electronic.
They put this in their system.
Yep. She took a screenshot because she was like, I don't know how to respond. Like, what do I do? And I commented on her post, and then she reached out to me in my DMs because I was telling her, like, I would not answer it, especially if they don't have a option for do not want to answer or something like that. I wouldn't answer. And I said, you might want to reconsider if you even want to continue applying with that company. Right. And so I get on the back end certain data that you want to collect to demonstrate and show and prove, like, yes, we are, a diverse organization. We are including people of different ableness and whatnot.
But on the back end.
On the back end.
On the back end.
Then go ahead and, get whatever demographic data. Somebody's sexual orientation or sexual preference, still data that is not really necessary. That's
that's very disturbing.
It is.
That's highly disturbing. And by the way, we have a couple of questions here real quick, DeAnnah, and I'm going to let you answer these. So we have Jean-Pierre and DR are asking basically the same question as, my name may come across ethnic. Should I use it or should I alter it?
So here's the deal. Unfortunately, altering your name, like I've altered my name before, it has worked to get me more traction. But then on the flip side, I challenge my clients to say, do you want to work for a company that won't consider you because of who you really are? So I usually leave that up to the client to decide, or the job seeker. I'm very transparent, like I'm telling you now. When you do alter your name, sometimes that will yield the results you're looking for in terms of the amount of responses you're getting. But what about the quality of the responses that you're getting? Because if they can't and won't accept your application as a qualified application because you have your full name on there, that might not be a company whose culture you want to work within or add to, for that matter. Because I don't believe in fitting into a culture. I'm going to add to your culture. I'm not going to fit in. And so
I like that.
And so you really want to think about it from that perspective. It may cause your job search to take a little bit longer, but it's well worth it if you're going to get within an organization that's not going to be unnecessarily stressful to you, because there's a lot of people in roles that they would love if it wasn't for the company culture or the type of people that they were working with. So I strongly suggest to take that into consideration.
100%. And we have another question. What happens if you select not to specify? Like you were talking about, like the choose to not answer on the EEOCs. Typically, technically nothing, or supposed to be nothing, but supposed to be nothing. But in theory,
why are you asking that question?
Exactly. Some people may still discriminate because you chose not to answer, so they're going to assume it's an answer that they don't want. One thing that this is one of my solutions that I'm trying to work on, and I'd love both of your opinions on this, is I am actually working with a developer right now to develop an ATS that when a resume is put in, scrubs out name, dates, anything that pictures, anything that could possibly, anything that mentions religion, because some people have worked for a church or something like that. Anything that could potentially cause discrimination, scrubbed out. So what you see is, this is what this person can do.
Yeah.
This is what they have to offer. And even when you first reach out to them to contact them for an interview, you still don't get to see their name. You just get to email them or whatever, you set it up. And so it's not until you actually are talking to them that you'll finally kind of have an idea. Because I have this idea that because I've seen this a lot, that a lot of clients and a lot of hiring companies won't discriminate once they decide that they like you.
Exactly.
Right? Once they think that you're qualified, they'll they'll kind of let it go. So what are y'all's thoughts on something like that?
I'll let you go first, Foster. I know I've been talking a lot.
It's okay. You're a guest. You're supposed to.
You're the expert on this one. I wonder why. It makes me wonder why a lot of things are that way. State your number one question again. State your number one
basically,
question
basically what I want to know is, what are your thoughts on having an ATS that scrubs out all of the potentially discriminatory information and leaves it to just, here's the candidate and what they can do?
Yeah, I have had that happen before, because I've been the fortunately, God's blessed me to be the gatekeeper for Fortune 10 companies. Ooh. And when you're in that position, there's a lot of things, but fortunately they gave me the strength to make the decisions that I made. I don't know what I think, but I knew what was trying to be done. I knew what was trying to be, and as a third party company, my God, we hear about all kinds of people stealing stuff, and big companies like what I work for, the IBMs and these things, we could get away with a little bit more in some cases. We don't mean to, but how these things, we're so litigious a society that we understand what you're trying to do. I didn't really have a problem with it. Now, some of my leadership that were above me did.
Oh, yeah. That's true from the execs. What about you, DeAnnah? What do you think about a process like that?
I absolutely love that, to be 100% honest. And it also forces candidates, which is something that I work on specifically with my company, to really convey their value, right? Understand their value proposition. And so I'm all about results. I tell any client that reaches out, like, oh, I want help, with my job search. I want you to redo my resume. I want you to help me rebrand as a professional, whatever it may be. It's kind of like, all right, we focus on results here. You have to understand and know how you contribute to the bottom line. So if you can scrub out that demographic information that's usually used for discriminating, whether it's conscious or unconscious discrimination, it then allows you to focus on what they are really bringing to the table, to the role, to the organization, to the industry as a whole. So I think that's an amazing idea.
Okay. Any other last minute suggestions that you want to give us to kind of wrap this up to help with true diversity hiring?
I would definitely say making sure you have a diverse committee, if you would, of individuals that are involved in that decision-making process. Because if you don't have representation at the table for the final decision that needs to be made, then it's going to be hard, even when you scrub that. Even if a company say, all right, we're going to scrub it, we're going to follow Catherine's model. You don't have the representation at the table when it comes down to the final decisions. You still run into those unintentional and intentional biases that come into play. So
I like that. I like the diversity at the table. I think that's absolutely imperative. So thank you so much, DeAnnah, for joining us. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you didn't have another hurricane. And
DeAnnah, I haven't been through one yet.
and I'm going to need you to please send me the link to get those glasses, because legit, I'm going to have to check these people out. Okay, I'm over here just green with envy. So have a great rest of the day. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon. I love her.
Awesome. That was awesome.
Isn't she spectacular? Yeah, she's really something.